There's a moment that almost no one includes in their retirement plans. You spend years thinking about the fun parts, the places you'll finally have time to visit, the hobbies you'll pick back up, sleeping in on a Tuesday just because you can. Maybe you'll buy the RV you've always wanted. Maybe you'll spend more weekends with the grandkids. Maybe you'll finally learn how to play golf without feeling guilty about sneaking away from work. That's how most people picture retirement. Two people who spent decades building a life together finally getting to enjoy it together. But life doesn't always follow the plan. Sometimes retirement changes in an instant. Not because the stock market crashes, or inflation gets worse, or your investments suddenly disappear, but because one day you're no longer planning retirement as a couple. You're planning it alone. It's a thought nobody enjoys. In fact, many couples avoid talking about it altogether because saying the words out loud somehow makes them feel more real. But avoiding the conversation doesn't protect the person you love. Planning does. Because here's something that surprises many retirees. The biggest financial challenge after losing a spouse often isn't the funeral expenses or the paperwork. It's realizing that while one person is gone, many of the bills decided to stay. The mortgage doesn't disappear. Property taxes don't suddenly become cheaper. The insurance company doesn't call to say, "We're sorry for your loss. We'll only charge you half from now on." Life simply keeps sending the bills. And that's when many surviving spouses discover something they never expected. Retirement can become more expensive than they imagined. Not because everything costs more, but because the income that once supported two people has changed. Let's start with one of the biggest surprises: Social Security. If you and your spouse were both receiving Social Security, it's easy to assume both payments continue after one of you passes away. After all, both of you earned those benefits during your working years. That seems fair, but that's generally not how it works. In most situations, the surviving spouse receives the larger of the two Social Security benefits instead of continuing to receive both. Think about how quickly that changes things. Imagine you and your spouse receive a combined $4,000 every month. The bills have been built around that income for years. You've figured out what you can comfortably spend. You know what comes in, you know what goes out. Then suddenly, one paycheck disappears. Almost overnight, your monthly income may shrink, even though many of your expenses hardly move at all. It's a little like trying to keep your home warm after someone quietly turns down the thermostat. You don't notice it immediately. Then, one day, the house feels colder, and you realize something has changed. This is one of the reasons financial planners often encourage married couples to think of Social Security as a family decision rather than two individual decisions. It's not simply about getting the biggest check while both of you are alive. It's also about helping protect the spouse who may someday be left behind. Nobody likes talking about survivor benefits. The name alone feels heavy. But behind that uncomfortable phrase is a simple truth. Every financial decision you make today has the potential to become someone else's financial reality tomorrow. Now let's talk about something else that catches families off guard: pensions. If you're fortunate enough to have one, you may assume it's guaranteed for life. And in many cases, it is. But the question isn't whether your pension lasts for your lifetime. The question is, what happens after your lifetime? When many people retire, they're asked to choose how their pension will be paid. Some options provide a larger monthly payment while both spouses are alive. Other options provide a smaller payment but continue supporting a surviving spouse after death. At the time, it's easy to focus on the bigger number. Who wouldn't? Retirement has finally arrived. You want to enjoy it. An extra few $100s every month sounds wonderful. But years later, that decision can take on a completely different meaning. Imagine a husband choosing the larger monthly pension because it seems like the obvious financial choice. Everything goes well for years. Then, after he passes away, his wife discovers her monthly income has been permanently reduced because of the option they selected decades earlier. The decision didn't feel important on retirement day. It became incredibly important years later. That's why retirement planning isn't just about asking, "How much can we receive?" Sometimes the better question is, "What happens to the person I love if I'm no longer here?" It's not the most cheerful conversation you'll ever have, but it may be one of the most meaningful. Because retirement planning isn't only about building wealth, it's about protecting each other. And that protection goes far beyond Social Security and pensions. Your retirement accounts can become part of the story too. Many couples assume their 401k or IRA simply transfers to the surviving spouse and life carries on exactly as before. In reality, while spouses often have favorable options for inherited retirement accounts, the decisions that follow can become much more complicated than people expect. Questions start appearing that never seemed important before. Should the account stay where it is? Should withdrawals begin now or later? How will future required minimum distributions affect retirement income? Could withdrawing too much in 1 year create an unnecessary tax bill? These aren't questions most couples ask while they're healthy, but after losing a spouse, they're suddenly sitting at the top of the to-do list. And unfortunately, those decisions usually arrive at the very moment someone is least prepared to make them. That's one of the quiet truths about retirement. The financial decisions don't pause just because your heart is hurting. Life keeps moving. The paperwork keeps arriving. The bills keep showing up. And that's exactly where many surviving spouses find themselves facing an entirely new chapter of retirement, one they never imagined having to write alone. The hardest part is that grief doesn't arrive with a checklist. No one hands you a folder labeled, "Here's what to do next." Instead, life keeps moving while you're still trying to process what just happened. The flowers eventually stop arriving. Friends and family head back to their own routines. The phone doesn't ring quite as often. Then one ordinary morning, you're standing in the kitchen holding a stack of envelopes, a bank statement, an insurance notice, a property tax bill, a retirement account statement, and for the first time in years, you're opening every single one by yourself. That's when many people experience what financial planners sometimes call the second loss. The first loss is the person you loved. The second is realizing just how much they quietly handled behind the scenes. Maybe your husband always managed the investments. Maybe your wife always paid the monthly bills. Maybe one of you knew every password, every account number, and every insurance policy by heart, while the other simply trusted that everything was under control. There's nothing wrong with dividing responsibilities in a marriage. Most couples do it. One person cooks, the other fixes things around the house, one remembers birthdays, the other remembers to renew the car insurance. That's just life. The problem begins when all the financial knowledge lives inside one person's head. Because when that person is suddenly gone, the surviving spouse isn't just dealing with heartbreak, they're trying to solve a puzzle without all the pieces. That's why one of the greatest gifts you can give your spouse has nothing to do with money. It's clarity. Both of you should know where your important documents are. Both of you should know where your retirement accounts are held. Both of you should know who to call if something unexpected happens. You don't need to memorize every account balance or become investment experts overnight, but neither spouse should feel completely lost if they suddenly have to manage everything alone. Think about it this way. If you were going on a long road trip, would you only let one person know where the spare tire is? Probably not. You'd make sure both of you knew. Retirement works the same way. Financial information shouldn't disappear with one person. It should be shared while you still have the chance. Another surprise many surviving spouses face has nothing to do with investments. It's taxes. For years, you've probably filed a joint tax return. It's something you barely think about. Then, after losing your spouse, your filing status may eventually change. Many people assume that if household income goes down, taxes automatically go down too. Not always. Some surviving spouses find themselves paying more tax than they expected because the tax rules have changed, even though they're living on less income. It's one of those frustrating moments where you think, how can I have less money coming in and still owe more? Retirement has a way of reminding us that taxes don't always follow common sense. Then there's the family home. For some people, it's impossible to imagine leaving. Every room tells a story. The marks on the wall where the children grew, the chair your spouse always sat in, the garden you planted together. Leaving can feel like saying goodbye all over again. But for others, the house slowly becomes too much. The yard needs mowing. The stairs become harder to climb. Repairs keep getting more expensive. Suddenly, the home that once felt comforting begins to feel overwhelming. There's no universal right answer. Some people stay for the rest of their lives. Others downsize and discover a smaller home gives them more freedom and less stress. The important thing is making that decision because it fits your future, not because you were forced into it by poor planning. And maybe that's the biggest lesson in all of this. Retirement planning isn't really about money. Money is simply one of the tools. What you're really planning for is peace of mind. The peace of knowing your spouse won't be left searching through filing cabinets trying to figure out where the life insurance policy is. The peace of knowing they understand how the retirement accounts work. The peace of knowing they won't have to make every major financial decision while they're still learning how to live with an empty chair at the dinner table. If you're watching this and your spouse is sitting in the next room, don't wait for the perfect time to have these conversations. There probably isn't one. Instead, make some coffee. Sit down together. Pull out your financial documents. Talk about where everything is. Review your beneficiaries. Go over your retirement income. Write down the important phone numbers. It may feel awkward. It may even feel unnecessary. Until one day, it isn't. At the beginning of this video, I said there's one question almost nobody includes in their retirement plans. What happens if one of us isn't here anymore? It's not a question anyone enjoys asking, but answering it today could spare the person you love months of confusion, financial stress, and difficult decisions later. None of us knows what tomorrow will bring, but we do have a choice about how prepared we'll be. Because the strongest retirement plan isn't the one with the biggest investment account. It's the one that protects the people you love, even when you're no longer there to do it yourself. If this video gave you something to think about, subscribe for more practical retirement insights designed to help you protect your savings, avoid costly surprises, and make informed decisions with confidence. After all, retirement isn't just about building a life together. It's also about making sure the person you love can keep living that life, no matter what tomorrow brings. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.